Move the writ for the Carlow Kilkenny by-election. There is a vacancy there, and you know the last government was forced by Pearse Doherty's High Court action to call by-elections within 6 months. So I would like to know when the people of that constituency will have the opportunity to elect a TD to represent them. Tá trí question Ella Agumsa, the Working Group on Seanad Reform, the Education's Admissions to School Bill 2015, and the Health Transport Support Bill. Agus Tá agad lás chun cóide an seachtain seáite Dilshi and Grúpa Ibre Madra le ach chóra an Seanad a her scale. And this report, it falls far short to what Sinn Féin and others believe is needed to make the Seanad a genuinely democratic and representative elected chamber, and I think that's mostly because of the restricted terms of reference that it was given, and the fact that the Taoiseach retains the privilege to appoint 11 nominees is wrong, and the failure to deal with issues of university representation and gender equality, or indeed the representation of ethnic groups, particularly the Crabline community, and the numbers to be elected by universal suffrage are too small. But having said all of that, when will the Dáil have the opportunity to debate this report, and when does the Taoiseach expect that government will produce legislation? Ceisthealach faoi act atá an tábhachtach, the Education's Admissions to School Bill 2015. And in theory, this bill, we're told, is about making school enrolment more structured, fair and transparent. And it also provides that a school will not discriminate on the basis of religion. But then it goes on to provide for discrimination, if I understand it properly, by allowing schools to refuse to admit certain children in order to maintain the ethos of the school. So in fact, that means that a school can still discriminate based on religion or faith. And the Minister has also said that she favours allowing schools to admit 10% of pupils if their parents are past pupils. And clearly that also discriminates against children who don't have that distinction. So what's the Taoiseach's view of this, and has the government set a date for the second stage reading of this bill? And then finally, last Concordia, and this is an issue I've raised many times with you, Taoiseach, and I've noticed over the last few months that the government is almost ticking boxes of issues that have been raised here. They're very important issues. They're issues that don't cost an awful lot of money, and it's almost as you prepare for the election that you're trying to close down these issues of discontent. But this Health Transport Support Bill is a huge injustice. In 2013, you closed the Mobility Allowance Scheme and the Motorised Transport Grant, affecting 5,000 citizens and their families. Now, I've raised this with you on a number of occasions, and you've acknowledged that what is happening is wrong. And the excuse given by the Minister at the time was that the government couldn't afford to keep the scheme open. It's quite interesting that this was brought to the attention of the Dáil because it was ruled to be in breach of equality laws. So we were told that the issue would be resolved by the Health Transport Support Bill. 2 years later, no progress. 2 years later, these people still sitting in the situation where they have been denied this necessary grant. And the legislative programme now states that it's not possible to tell us when the bill will be published. So could you clarify this and tell the Dáil when the Health Transport Support Bill will be published? And could I ask you to add it to that list of issues which don't cost the government or the taxpayer an awful lot of money, which would alleviate great difficulties for these citizens and for their families?
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Well, I've answered this before for your Deputy. I can't give you a specific date for this. It's included in the legislative programme for this year under the Department of Health. The work is advanced in respect of the drafting of the proposals for primary legislation here, but it has not come to government yet. The Education Admissions Bill was published on the 8th of April. We don't have a date for that here yet. Obviously, it's a matter for the whips to agree on a time when it will be debated here in the Dáil. I noted the comments of the Minister at the recent Teachers' Councils, Teachers' meetings in regard to this matter. The by-election in Ceatharlach&Cill will take place on the 22nd of May, and the writ will be moved by the Minister for the Environment, obviously in good time for a good, enthusiastic, vibrant and energetic campaign to take place for the 22nd. So that will happen, obviously, in the very near future. In regard to the Seanad, the working group, this group was asked to do work under the chairmanship of former Seanad leader Maurice Manning by myself, and it had contained members nominated by the different party leaders to represent their parties. Clearly, the people made their decision in respect of the retention of the Seanad. So the terms of reference for the group were to examine the electoral system, to examine the work programme that might be possible for the Seanad, but within the constitutional parameters that would not require a further referendum. People decided, albeit by a narrow majority, to retain the Senate. So the question of the numbers being appointed by the Taoiseach of the day to the Seanad is enshrined in the Constitution. You cannot change that, Deputy, without a referendum. So they were asked to work within the constitutional parameters. Now, I do think that the programme and the report presented to me and to everybody by the group, I think, is radical, is very innovative, is very different. Actually, it's very exciting in the sense of what could be achieved in respect of Seanad. So I hope to meet with the party leaders. I know that the group themselves are in before the Oireachtas Committee shortly to give a presentation on the workings of this and their propositions, and also before the Seanad themselves. And I think that's happening in the next fortnight or very near future. That is, the members of the group are going before the Seanad themselves to present the report that they have drafted. But I also think, Deputy Adams, that the work programme, potentially the work programme outlined by the group, is also very interesting. No, they did point out about European directives, secondary legislation, the North-South Ministerial, the British-Irish, and a range of other matters that could certainly be discussed by senators without interfering with the sensitive issue of how they view the electoral system, which is a very different and very radical document. So, in due course, Deputy, will have an opportunity to discuss it here, but also in the Upper House.
Thank you. I have 6 other deputies now. Please, if I could have brevity. Deputy Seanad Farrell.
Thank you very much, Count Corla. I just have 2 questions on pieces of justice legislation. The Criminal Justice Miscellaneous Provisions Bill is promised at number 55, and